Buenas noches, damas y caballeros, y bienvenidos a la clase del Señor O'Rear in casa. Great news! Tonight we have no new verb conjugations. Let's not worry too much about the verbs. We have something else to contend with. These things are called direct object pronouns. A lot of teachers shorten that to DOPs. Bottom line, in Spanish, they're called complementos directos. And as we study these complementos directos, or direct object pronouns, we have 4 vocabulary words to deal with. These are lo, la, los, and las. Now, those might look familiar to you because you've seen 3 of them before, the la, los, and las. We just have a new usage for them. So, these 4 words, we need to know 2 things about them. Number 1, what do they mean? This way you can know when to use lo, la, los, or las. Number 2, we need to know where do you put these words. In this way we can figure out how to use them. So if we're going to start with direct object pronouns, let's begin with the English language. Direct object pronouns, what are they? Well, let's start with the word it. It is an amazing word. Have you ever stopped to think about what it really covers? It can be anything that you want it to be. You can have seen it, you would have tasted it, you would have watched it, you may have done it. It could be just about anything. It is an amazing thing. And if you do more than one it, you've actually done them. Remember those things? You saw them, you watched them, you ate them. It and them are if you're talking about objects. Now if we're talking about people, you could have seen Jose, you could have seen him, you could have seen Anita. You could have seen her. So him refers to any guy. Her refers to any girl. Anybody in the whole world. And you put 2 or more of them together, who do you come up with? You come up with them. So it, him, her, them, those are all direct object pronouns. And all we're doing right now is we are taking those direct object pronouns, it, him, her, them, and we're changing them into Spanish. So what we're really dealing with here are the keys to this. The key is know that all nouns in Spanish are masculine, feminine, singular, and plural. If you remember that, this actually kind of gets easy. So let's go back to the 4 Spanish words that we're talking about that we need to know what they mean. Lo, la, los, and las. Well, if we're talking about objects and they're singular, we're going to be talking about the word it. If it's a masculine noun, it's lo. If it refers to a feminine noun, it's la. If we're going to be talking about more than one thing, plural objects, and they're masculine, it'd be los. If we're going to be talking about plural things and they're feminine, it would be las. We do the exact same thing if we're talking about people. Him would be referring to a masculine singular noun, so it's lo. Her would be referring to a feminine singular noun, so that's la. And if we're referring to plural nouns, both masculine and feminine, those would be los and las. That is really the key to all of this. So now that we've discussed when to use them, we know what they mean, we need to figure out how to use them. So basically we need to talk about where do we put them. So we're going to talk about a couple placement rules. Now you may remember when I made you watch the reflexive verbs video last semester, there were 2 placement rules for the reflexive pronouns. Both of those placement rules are the exact same rules for the direct object pronouns, the lo, la, los, or las. Do you remember them? Rule number 1, you can always put them before the conjugated verb. You cannot have a sentence unless there is a conjugated verb. Rule number 2, you may attach the pronouns to an infinitive verb. Now that assumes that there is an infinitive verb and not every sentence will have one. But if there is an infinitive verb, feel free to attach it, or, since it's a complete sentence, it will have a conjugated verb, it can go in front. Let's take this little pruebita to see if you can kind of figure out what all this means. First of all, let's translate to Spanish the sentence, I bought them. Well, you need to know what them are. Let's assume we're talking about, say, cookies. So I bought them. Well, we're talking about cookies. We need to know that cookies, of course, are las galletas, feminine noun. So let's translate I bought. That's compré. It's a conjugative verb, so the pronoun's going to go in front. And I want to say the word them for cookies. Do you remember what it is? Lo, la, los, or las? If you said las compré, you are absolutely correct. Las is for a feminine noun, them. Let's try it with a person. We saw her. Well, we don't know who her is, but we know that it's a female. We saw is, of course, the preterite of ver, so we could say vimos is we saw. Now, since her is a person, you say vimos a ella, or let's just use the direct object pronoun. Is it lo, la, los, or las? If you said la vimos, you are absolutely correct. Again, vimos is a conjugative verb. We put la in front of the conjugated verb. Let's try something a little bit more complicated. I'm going to study them. Well, what are you going to study? Them has to refer to something. So let's say we're talking about direct object pronouns. Now in Spanish, that's complementos directos. Directos is a hint to tell you if complementos is masculine or feminine, singular or plural. So I'm going to study them. Let's start with I'm going to study. That's voy a estudiar. Now, do you remember the word for them if we're talking about complementos directos? And where do you put it? Do you put it before voy, or do you attach it to estudiar? Let's take a look at grammar rule number 1. Voy is a conjugative verb, so I can put los, if you guessed los, you were correct, in front of voy, and we have los voy a estudiar. That means I'm going to study them. Placement rule number 2 states that you can attach it to an infinitive if there is one. And looky here, there is an infinitive verb. So we can attach it to estudiar. And now we get voy a estudiarlos. That means I'm going to study them. Or los voy a estudiar means I'm going to study them. They're both correct. One is no more right nor wrong than the other one. Okay, so if you've not been taking notes, you need to get out a piece of paper and write down the following information. First of all, we needed to know what they meant. Lo, la, los, and las. Lo means it or him. La, it or her. Los means them, objects or people. Las means them, feminine nouns, objects or people. Secondly, where do we put them? Rule number 1, we put them before the conjugative verb. There's a conjugative verb in every sentence, so if you follow this one, you won't be wrong. If there's an infinitive, you have the ability to attach it to the infinitive. Pause here, write this down, make certain you understand this fully before you move on. Okay, go ahead and number your paper now 1 through 4 and take the following little pruebita right here. Go ahead and look at this page. You don't have to copy the page, just look at it very carefully, number 1 through 4, and then fill in the blank spots. If you're hearing this, that means that you've pushed pause, you've already filled this in. If you haven't filled it in, please push pause because I want to check your answers here in just a moment. Here are the answers for 1 through 4. I ate it, talking about the apple, feminine noun. La comí. I saw them, Javier and Anita. Javier is a guy, so it's masculine form plural, los vi. Do you know him? Talking about Marcos, it's a guy. Lo conoces? And then, of course, we bought them, talking about the blouses. Those are las blusas, feminine plural, las compramos. If you think you know it, then go ahead and go on to the next question. ¿Cuándo vas a hacer la tarea? I want you to answer this question in 2 different ways using the direct object pronoun. So go ahead and push pause. Think about how you would answer this question. Hopefully you'd answer that question. Pues voy a hacer la tarea ahora. I'm going to do the homework now. But what I want you to do is get rid of the word homework, la tarea, and change it to the word it. What word takes the place of tarea? What word takes the place of homework? It for a feminine noun. Hopefully you've got that in your head. Now the question is, where do you put the word it? Placement rule number 1 states, hey, put it in front of the conjugative verb. Conjugative verb is voy, so you can put that word in front of voy a hacer ahora, I'm going to do it now, talking about homework, of course. And of course, it would be la voy a hacer ahora. But again, you have an infinitive verb. So if you have an infinitive verb, you of course can attach it to the infinitive verb instead of putting it in front of voy. You attach it to hacer. It's still going to be I'm going to do it now. And that changes to voy a hacerla ahora. So whether you have la voy a hacer ahora or voy a hacerla ahora, they both mean I'm going to do it now. Talking about homework. Muy bien, damas y caballeros, eso es todo por ahora. Muy buena suerte, por favor. Ustedes saben qué va a pasar mañana. Tenemos pruebita en los complementos directos. Muy buenas noches.